My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. I don't know very much about cryptocurrency. I know that everyone's talking about it. I know that I'm supposed to know something about it. And I kind of get what it's supposed to be about. But when it comes to initial coin offerings and what's on the blockchain and why there are 9,000 different cryptocurrencies and whether it's actually the future of currency or some sort of a scam, I have no idea. None. I know that I don't expect to be paid in Ethereum anytime soon. But what about Bitcoin? Bitcoin seems like the go-to, the standard, the original Pepsi or the Coca-Cola Classic version of what cryptocurrency is all about. So often, Bitcoin becomes a conversation about cryptocurrency in general and vice versa, even though Bitcoin is just one type of cryptocurrency. But where did it come from? Who invented it? Well, what you may not know, some of you may, is that the inventor of Bitcoin is a total mystery. We don't know who invented it. And that is the subject of a fascinating book, a book which is partly explainer, partly economic primer, and part mystery story. The book is The Mysterious Mr. Nakamoto, a 15-year quest to unmask the secret genius behind crypto. Its author is Benjamin Wallace, who was kind enough to join me right now. Benjamin, thanks so much for joining me on the radio.
Thanks for having me.
So, is Bitcoin the first cryptocurrency?
It is. Your analogy to Coca-Cola is a good one. Everything else grew out of Bitcoin.
And who invented Bitcoin?
Well, so we know the name of the name is Satoshi Nakamoto, and we know that because on Halloween in 2008, someone going by the name Satoshi Nakamoto posted a description of this idea to a kind of email list online, a kind of an obscure email list, and then 2 months later, released the software for it, still under the name Satoshi Nakamoto. So we know it's Satoshi Nakamoto. What we don't know is what's behind Satoshi Nakamoto, because Satoshi Nakamoto was a pseudonym, and it was unknown whether it was a person, a group, an institution, and that mystery has continued, to this day.
So do we know what the stated purpose in inventing Bitcoin and by extension cryptocurrency was?
Somewhat. I mean, so it was basically, the idea was an electronic money. And even though the internet, by 2008 had been kind of a thing that we all had dealt with for, I don't know, nearly 20 years at that point, no one had figured out a way to have internet money. Because, sort of the thing about the internet, right, is like information could just be copy and pasted. And that's what's great about it in some ways, like information can immediately kind of, be distributed across the world instantaneously. But the problem with that when it comes to money is what then stops someone from just copying your digital money and counterfeiting it or, having unlimited supply. And so what Satoshi Nakamoto figured out was a computer science way to prevent that, to create digital scarcity where you could actually have internet money that could not be counterfeited and that did have a limited money supply.
I don't know very much about Bitcoin, but I know the value of it has skyrocketed over the years, and that initially the amount of Bitcoin that was used for the first purchase, which I think was a pizza pie or two, is now just in many factors greater in value. I think it might even be a couple of $1,000s for those first Bitcoin pizza pies. I would think that the person that invented Bitcoin is probably super wealthy, at least on paper or on digital. Is Satoshi Nakamoto a very wealthy person?
So Satoshi Nakamoto is believed to control 1.1 million Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, I don't know what it is today. Maybe it's like $85,000 a coin, but so whatever the math is on that, I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars. And amazingly, I mean, just to make one small correction, those pizza pies, it was 2 Papa John's pizzas, and they paid 10,000 Bitcoins for them.
Mm. So if they go for $85,000 now, that's about $850,000 for those pizza pies,
or 850 million.
850 million. Excuse me. Math was never my strong suit. Which so that's
I'm doing it on the fly, and I could be wrong, but something like that. Yeah.
So he's a pretty wealthy guy, this Satoshi Nakamoto. Clearly,
top 20 richest people in the world.
Wow. Why don't we know who this guy actually is? Why don't we know who his identity is?
Well, I mean, the first reason, I guess, is they took steps to not be discovered. So they didn't want to be known, and they used perfect OPSEC, right? Operational security. I mean, a lot of people have tried in the years since to figure out who this was. They used anonymizing software, sort of the same software people use to get on the dark web. And they just took a lot of those types of security steps to be unfindable, and they somehow managed to elude detection.
Wow, geez. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. And we're talking with Benjamin Wallace, the author of the book, The Mysterious Mr. Nakamoto. In this era, how does anybody keep their identity secret like this, especially when you're worth this kind of money and so many people are probably eager to find out who you are? How does he keep it a secret, or how does she, or how do they keep it a secret?
Well, one thing is they haven't touched the coins. And I think one of the theories is that the reason they haven't touched the coins is because the minute they do, then maybe someone would be able to start tracing where the coins went and perhaps would discover who it was. One of the theories is that Satoshi Nakamoto might be an intelligence agency, right? So if that were the case, then obviously those are people who are well practiced at covering their tracks.
Well, yeah, I can understand that. That makes some sense. Have there been any credible guesses as to who folks think this might be beyond intelligence agencies? Any other guesses in terms of individuals?
Yeah, I mean, there've been a handful. I mean, so before Bitcoin came on the scene, there was this group called the cypherpunks in the 1990s, and it was this group of kind of libertarians and cryptographers who were, at the time, the government was trying to prevent cryptography from kind of being used by the masses, and the cypherpunks were determined to kind of make cryptography available to everybody. And so a handful of those people at the time came up with various digital cash systems and ideas for digital money, and a lot of the ideas were similar to what then became Bitcoin. And so the handful of people who had done those early digital cash ideas were the initial kind of usual suspects of who might be Satoshi Nakamoto. But every one of them, and one of them is a guy named Nick Szabo, another is a guy who's named Hal Finney. But for each of these people, there was always some reason that made it sort of not a clear-cut case that they were Satoshi Nakamoto. And just to give one example, like Hal Finney, there's a record of him running, I think it was like a 10K or a half marathon, public record, photo of it happening at the very moment when Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonym, was sending an email to somebody. And so there's always like something like that makes it not a slam dunk case for one of these people.
But have there been actual folks that, just to be clear, have taken credit for being Satoshi Nakamoto or try to claim to pull themselves off as this creator?
I mean, there have been a bunch. I mean, I've received, over the years, I started writing about Bitcoin in 2011 when I wrote about it for Wired magazine. And over the years since, like every now and then I'll get an email from someone claiming to be Satoshi Nakamoto. And in 2015, actually, I got an email that contained a bunch of what were presented as kind of hacked documents pointing to an Australian guy named Craig Wright as Satoshi Nakamoto. And Craig Wright, in the years since, has repeatedly claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto when people have, said he's a fraud and he's a liar. He's sued those people. He's sued a lot of people. And so for about, 10 years, he maintained that he was Satoshi Nakamoto and sued all these people. And eventually, just last year, a British court finally ruled definitively, like, this guy is not Satoshi Nakamoto, and in fact forced him to post on his website, Craig Wright is not Satoshi Nakamoto.
Wow. So if people are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Benjamin Wallace. Do you have a theory as to who or what Satoshi Nakamoto is?
I mean, it's been a journey because I've been on this case for a while. So I've gone through various stages of having different theories, and my current favorite is not as specific. I can't tell you the name, but my current favorite theory is that not that it's an intelligence agency, but that it might be someone who works at an intelligence agency, but moonlighting and did this on the side. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I've sort of arrived at that as my current favorite theory. And one of them is just the process of elimination, because all of the people who were kind of the more likely candidates, like people who had previously presented ideas for digital money, that sort of thing, all of them have been sort of ruled out for one reason or another, or at a minimum have had doubt cast on them. And so there's an old, like, Sherlock Holmes saying, if the thing that, let me get this wrong, but it's something like, if the most obvious possibility isn't true, then whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more obvious possibilities have kind of not panned out. And that leaves you with the idea that maybe Satoshi Nakamoto is someone who really no one has ever looked at or perhaps even heard of, and who was kind of following the digital cash conversation for all those years, but was like a lurker and so he was very aware of the conversation, but wasn't taking part in it. And then just had a stroke of brilliance and invented Bitcoin. And how many people, does that description apply to who are just like regular civilians, And so, that is one possibility. And the other thing is that the way Bitcoin is designed is one part of Bitcoin uses like multiple, sort of cryptographic algorithms to create new Bitcoin addresses. It's sort of an unusual thing that they do. Like they use one from like the European intelligence agencies and one from the American intelligence agencies. And it's almost like this is a person who, is very aware of the potential that one of these could be broken by an adversarial, cryptographer. And so they've kind of, given themselves insurance by using two different crypto algorithms from two different continents. And so that is another reason people think maybe this is someone who's skilled in kind of adversarial cryptography.
That is interesting. Does any of this matter? Does it matter who Satoshi Nakamoto is? Bitcoin is here, for better or worse. Does it matter the true identity of who invented it? I mean, obviously, we're all curious about it. You, with this 15-year journey you've been on, I'm sure more so than most. But does it really matter to anything?
Right. Well, here's where I come down on this. So my mind, like, we don't know if it matters until we know who it is, right? Like, if it's just some average Joe who, wants his privacy, then maybe it doesn't matter. But we don't know that it is an average Joe. What if it's the Chinese Communist Party and they designed Bitcoin to destabilize the dollar, right? Is that a good thing? Shouldn't we know about that? Like, should we just sort of automatically defer to the idea that it doesn't matter? And I think until we know who it is, we can't decide if it matters. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that I think we've all recently seen that, like, whoever the richest person in the world is can have a huge impact on society. And so it probably would be good for us to just know, like, who is this person or institution and what is their agenda? Because, right now, based on the 1.1 million Bitcoin Satoshi is believed to own, he's in the top 20 richest people. If Bitcoin just goes up in value, a few more times, by a multiple, a few more times, then he could be the richest person in the world. And then I think, that could matter.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. Yeah. So you've spent 15 years on the trail of Satoshi Nakamoto, maybe more. What first drew you into this mystery, and when did you realize that it might become a lifelong pursuit?
Well, so I was a magazine writer, and I got assigned by Wired magazine in 2011 to write about it. And at the time, I'd never heard of Bitcoin. No one had ever heard of Bitcoin. Barely. The Silk Road, the dark web, black marketplace had just kind of been making the news. And at the time, like, people were just beginning to realize that Satoshi Nakamoto was a pseudonym and that the identity was a mystery, because in the first year or two, people just thought, oh, it's, I've never heard of the guy, but he must just be some person I've never heard of. And only in sort of 2011 did people start focusing on the reality that this was a pseudonym and that they didn't actually know who it was. And so part of, what I was trying to do back then when I wrote for Wired was, like, I want to find out who Satoshi Nakamoto is. And I didn't think it would be that hard. And it was. And it turned out that I wasn't the only one who found it hard. I mean, it became this kind of white whale for tech journalists, like, trying to figure out who Satoshi Nakamoto is. And one after another failed. Some of them came up with a name, and then they would, report that, it was this person or that person. And then they'd be kind of embarrassed because it would turn out that it wasn't. Like, Newsweek in 2014 named some random guy Dorian Nakamoto, but whose middle name was Satoshi, and he lived in a suburb of Los Angeles. And they named him, in a cover story as, like, this is Satoshi Nakamoto, and, like, the press was camped out on the guy's lawn. There was, like, a low-speed white Bronco-style chase on the freeways of LA with, like, all these, journalists following in cars behind this guy, and he turned out to be some guy who had nothing to do with it and just lived with his mother and was so broke he'd recently had to turn off his internet, much less, certainly didn't own billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And so I was really focused on it in 2011. Then I backed off, but I was always keeping tabs on it. Every now and then I'd get these emails from someone saying they were Satoshi or saying they knew who Satoshi was. And so I was kind of passively following it, for many years, and then got back into it in late 2021 when I got another one of these emails. And this one was insisting that Elon Musk was Satoshi Nakamoto.
Well, I mean, that would be interesting. Do you put any credibility in that theory?
I mean, I thought it was interesting because it was interesting because one of the theories that I always thought, was plausible is, like, maybe the reason Satoshi Nakamoto hasn't touched the coins is because Satoshi Nakamoto is already fantastically wealthy, so they don't need the coins. Right. And Elon Musk would definitely fit that. And he's obviously a brilliant guy, and he's capable of a lot of different things. And he's interested in money, like he had been an executive at PayPal around the year 2000. So there were certain ways in which he fit, but there were so many ways in which he, didn't fit, including, he's not modest, and so why would he never take credit for it? And so I don't give much credence to that theory.
So what if Satoshi never wanted to remain anonymous? What if they just lost access to the keys or they died unexpectedly?
Mm-hmm.
Would that change how we see Bitcoin today?
I don't think it would. I think, first of all, I think it's very possible that both of those scenarios are very possible. I mean, I've talked to like very experienced cryptographers who say like, it's really like a lot. It's not that hard to lose your keys, and like they've done it. Like these people I talked to, so that's a possibility. It's possible Satoshi Nakamoto died. I mean, as far as people in the kind of Bitcoin world are concerned, like they're happy that no one knows who Satoshi is. I mean, they like the idea. The whole idea of Bitcoin, right, is that it doesn't have a boss. It's not controlled by the government. It's not controlled by the bank. It's controlled by a crowd. It's controlled by this peer-to-peer network of people who just volunteer their computers to be part of the network and to kind of help run it. And so it's very like on brand for it not to have a leader. And if we don't know who the leader is, also, we don't have to worry about like, do we like the leader? Like maybe some people would like this person and other people would like that person. And, it sort of keeps it from being personalized. And so, but I don't think if they're dead or lost the keys, that in and of itself would really affect what we think of Bitcoin. I mean, I think something that might affect how we think of Bitcoin is like if it happened to be, let's say, again, an adversarial country, or if it was some person who people really didn't like a really unpopular person. I mean, it doesn't mean it wouldn't affect the technology necessarily, but would Fidelity, be offering like their retail customers the ability to invest in it? Maybe not, if it was someone who turned out to be just like this awful person.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge. This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco original equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
Let's imagine if you were somehow given undeniable proof of Satoshi's identity tomorrow. Would you publish it, or is the myth more important than the man or woman at the moment?
Well, it would depend who it was. Like the myth is only important to people who own Bitcoin and have sort of an ideology about it being leaderless. Like I'm an outsider to it, right? Like not that I've never owned Bitcoin, but I'm a journalist, and so whether or not it's important for Bitcoin to have a myth around it is not really something I care about. But to me, it would be more like if it was some basically anonymous person and they weren't harming anybody and they wanted their privacy, like I would have to give a lot of thought before deciding to publicize their name. So it would really just depend on who it was and Was it an individual? Was it a well-known individual? Was it an organization? Was it a country?
Well, that makes sense. I totally understand that. If Satoshi came forward today and dumped their coins, it could destabilize the entire crypto ecosystem. Do you think that's part of the reason why maybe they've stayed silent?
Well, I mean, it may be part of the reason why they've not touched the coins, but they could sort of announce themselves and in fact promise people that they weren't going to use the coins, which might reassure people, or they could alternatively, there's something you can do in cryptocurrency where there's something called a burn address where they could send all the coins to a burn address, which would make these coins like irrecoverable and would reassure people that this person's never going to be able to spend these coins. And not only that, they've just reduced the money supply of Bitcoin by like 5% because the total, money supply of Bitcoin is like 21 million coins, which it'll reach in like 100 years from now or a little more than that. And so if you reduced it by 1.1 million, now you're under 20 million coins, which would actually probably increase the value of people's coins.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So you've spent years working on this, staring into the void of Satoshi's silence. After all that, do you feel closer to the truth or just, more respectful of the mystery?
More respectful of the mystery. I mean, it's weird. It sort of has not followed the laws of most stories where, even if you don't get to the white hot core of the mystery, you definitely feel like you've kind of moved into the concentric rings, like you've moved to some of the inner rings. And with this one, like there's just no center to it. And so I've kind of circled it and thought I was close, and then it turned out I wasn't close. And, again, the sort of process of elimination, maybe I feel like I've moved a little bit closer in the sense of ruling out some individuals and some possibilities. But it really has made me not just respectful, but kind of in awe of the accomplishment of how this person or people managed to create this thing that has become so significant and revolutionary in a way without ever being known.
What do you see as the future of cryptocurrency? Do you think future historians will look back on Bitcoin as this revolutionary invention, or was it a speculative fad? What do you think? Where do you see us going?
I think both. I mean, I think it is a revolutionary technology. I think a lot of the sort of behavior around, the currency value has been definitely speculative. And Bitcoin is the most solid of all of them. I mean, and there's a few other ones that are sort of serious, but I would say like 95% of crypto activity and all the different currencies. I mean, I think Coinbase says there's something like over 11,000 different cryptocurrencies at this point. And like 95% plus of that, I think, is just pure speculative froth. But I think right at the very center of it, the invention of the technology, the blockchain technology, this money that and this kind of record of this money, this ledger that is controlled by a crowd, is revolutionary. And I do think it's here to stay. I mean, what is it now? 2000. So we're 17 years in. The price keeps going up. No one has really found a way to kind of hack the core of Bitcoin. I mean, people hack into these exchanges and these third parties that are using Bitcoin and doing stuff with Bitcoin, but no one's really figured out a way to hack into Bitcoin, even though there's now a bounty of whatever the market cap of Bitcoin is, which is like, I think it's like $2 trillion at this point. So certainly plenty of motive for someone to try to hack, and all the smartest hackers in the world have tried. And so I don't think it's going anywhere.
We'll end it there. We're going somewhere. Benjamin Wallace, I appreciate the conversation very, very much, and I hope we can chat again soon. Best of luck. If you do decide you want to come forward when you solve the mystery, you absolutely must come back on our show.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Good talking with you, Frank.
Benjamin Wallace.